Hello everyone and welcome to today's video. In today's video, I'm doing a way too early hypothetical 2028 presidential election prediction. In this matchup, I have Vice President J.D. Vance going up against Democrat Pete Buttigieg. And I am doing this video right after the news has come out that Pete Buttigieg will not be running for Senate in Michigan or Governor in Michigan in 2026. All signs are pointing towards him being a potential Democratic candidate in 2028. This is a video I've thought about doing for a while, but I wanted it to be officially confirmed that Buttigieg would be running not for Senate and probably for president in 2028 before I jumped in. So for things starting off, I have Vance starting out with about 201 electoral votes that I think are pretty much totally guaranteed that he would win. Buttigieg starts off with about 177 electoral votes that I think he's pretty much guaranteed to win. We also have about 8 states in yellow that I have listed as what I view as battleground states, or Nebraska's 2nd District battleground district. There's also some states in gray, which I think are going to be likely either for the Democrat or the Republican, but I want to talk about a little bit more. So I'm going to start with the state of New Mexico and its 5 electoral votes. New Mexico, we saw a shift a little bit in 2024, where, let's pull up the presidential map. In 2024, New Mexico voted by 6 points for Kamala Harris. 6 points would be over 5 and under 15, which in my rankings would put it as likely Democrat. In 2020, and a very good night for the Democrats, it went 10.8% for Biden. So the trend over the last 2 elections has been likely Democrat, though it has moved a little bit towards the Republican direction, moved about 4 points from 2020 to 2016, or from 2020 to 2024. I'm not sure Vance will be able to really make a lot of gains in the same way Trump did going from 2020 to 2024, especially after 4 years of a Trump presidency. So I'm going to keep New Mexico in the likely Democratic column for now, but I do think that's one that could potentially be of note to watch. Next, we have the state of Ohio and its 17 electoral votes. We just saw Ohio vote for Donald Trump by 11.2%. That is up from 2020 where it voted for Trump by 8%, so it did swing about 3 points. But the question is, will Vance, despite being from Ohio, be able to swing it any more to the Republican direction? Maybe, but I don't think it's anything significant to get over 15% margin of victory, which would make it a safe Republican state. I think Ohio still narrowly stays as likely Republican in 2028. Now we're getting into the states more commonly viewed as toss-ups, but we still have a few more likely states like the state of Maine and its 7 electoral votes. Maine, we did just see at large was won by Kamala Harris by 6.9%. And we saw back in 2020, the state overall was won by 9.1%. So again, similar to New Mexico, it did swing towards Trump's direction. This one by about 2 points. But I do think with Vance on the top of the ticket, I do think Maine will probably continue to be a likely Democratic state in Buttigieg versus Vance. However, the 2nd congressional district is different than the state, where it voted for Donald Trump by about 9 points in 2024. It voted for Trump by 7.4 in 2020, so it actually got redder in 2024. There is the potential maybe Vance loses like 1 to 2% in support, but I do think the district will continue to remain Republican in the likely Republican column. This puts Vance up to 219. Buttigieg is at 184. Now the state of New Jersey and its 14 electoral votes. This is one everyone loves talking about because it had a massive swing in 2024, going for Harris over Trump 5.9%. And looking back at 2020, it voted for 15.9% for Biden over Trump. 2016, it voted for Clinton over Trump 14.1%. So a massive shift in New Jersey. This one is all going to be, can the Republicans keep up the momentum in New Jersey and continue to get votes and inroad with voters in the state? It's going to have to be wait and see, but still, even at 5.9%, New Jersey was a likely Democratic win in 2024. Without Trump on top of the ticket, on top of the ballot, I think that it still does remain a likely Democratic state. I think the days of New Jersey being a safe Democratic state are probably done, but I don't think I'm ready to say it's going to be a toss-up state or anything like that in 2028 yet. Pete Buttigieg and J.D. Vance, I don't think either one of them is going to be necessarily amazing at turning out a lot of voters in New Jersey the way Donald Trump was able to do, but I think it'll probably be enough to keep the status quo there of about a 6 to 7 point win for the Democrats in New Jersey. This puts Buttigieg at 198, Vance is at 219. Now we have the state of Virginia. Virginia voted for Kamala Harris over Donald Trump by 5.8%, so pretty much right in line with what New Jersey did, 5.8, 5.9. And Virginia, like New Jersey, did trend from a 10-point win for Biden in 2020 all the way down to a 5.8% win for Harris in 2024. Virginia is going to be interesting because I think Buttigieg will probably do a better job getting a lot of suburban white working class voters than Harris was able to do. And there is the potential Vance may do a little bit worse than Trump did at turning out voters in Virginia. Trump is very good at getting a lot of his base out to vote. I'm not sure if Vance will be able to do that as well as Trump did. So I do think Virginia stays as likely Democrat, but I think there's a potential for Buttigieg to win it by a little bit more than Trump did. This puts Buttigieg up to 211. Vance is at 219. Now we're starting to get into the really, really close states. But lastly, I do have the state of Minnesota, which Minnesota is always an interesting one because it's always on the cusp between being a lean Democratic state or a toss-up state. It voted for Harris by 14 or by 4.2%, not 14, 4.2% in 2024. In 2020, it voted for Biden by 7.1. In 2016, it voted for Clinton by 1.5. So it's always like sort of on the edge between being really competitive and being a lean Democratic state. I think with Buttigieg at the top of the ticket, it very, very narrowly is won by Buttigieg by about 5 points, which would put it as likely Democrat. But it's right on the edge between being a likely Democratic state and a lean Democratic state. So Buttigieg is at 221, Vance is at 219, and this is where the election really starts to get going. So first things first, I'm going to start in the southwestern part of the country and work my way east. In the state of Nevada and its 6 electoral votes, President Trump and J.D. Vance in 2024 did a much better job in Nevada at getting a lot of working class voters out to vote for President Trump and was able to flip the state of Nevada for the first time, I believe, since 2004. Trump won the state by 3.1%, a lean Republican margin. Again, back in 2020, Joe Biden won the state by 2.4%, almost a complete mirror flip from 2020 to 2024. I think J.D. Vance being at the top of the ticket, again, I don't think he's going to do as well as Trump did in 2024, but I do think he'll do well enough to continue to win Nevada by just a little bit over 1%, making it a lean Republican state, and I think that's going to be a trend that continues in the state of Nevada. Now the state of Arizona, where the Republicans saw a big boost and big shift in Arizona, being won by Donald Trump by 5.5 points after 2020, where Joe Biden was able to win the state by 0.31%, getting under 50% of the vote, though, so that is significant. It was a plurality vote, where in 2024, Donald Trump got 52.2% of the vote. There are going to be some states where Pete Buttigieg, I think, does better at getting voters to turn out for him, and I don't think Arizona is going to be one of those states. I think Buttigieg may do a little bit better in the Rust Belt areas than he would in a state like Arizona. I think Arizona continues to be a Republican state for Vance, and I think may even be a likely Republican state, but I'm putting it as lean Republican for now, just under 5 points, but I think Vance will win there. Georgia and its 16 electoral votes, this is one that I think if this election matchup between Vance and Buttigieg did happen, is going to be one that really is going to be up for debate. Because Georgia was super close in 2024. It was won by Donald Trump by 2.2%, and it was 50.72 to 48.53. The big difference between Harris in 2024 and Buttigieg in 2028 is I think Kamala Harris would do a much better job, despite Trump making massive gains with the African American community. I think Harris is going to do a much better job at winning African American voters than Pete Buttigieg will, which ultimately may boost Vance's margin of victory in Georgia over Trump's 2.2% in 2024. We saw in 2020, Joe Biden was able to win Georgia in large part, getting a lot of black voters to turn out and vote for him, getting his support up to 49.47%. Kamala Harris in 2024 could get up to 48.53%. I can't imagine Pete Buttigieg doing any better in Georgia than Kamala Harris or Joe Biden was able to do. So I think Georgia does vote for J.D. Vance in a lean Republican margin against Pete Buttigieg. I don't think Pete Buttigieg is the best Democratic candidate at trying to turn out black voters, but maybe I'll be wrong about that if this election happens, but right now I personally don't see that being the case. Now we're going to go to the state of North Carolina and its 16 electoral votes. North Carolina is fascinating because for 2026 we have a very contested Senate election coming up in the state, and that could potentially have ramifications for 2028. But we did see another close election here. Trump won the state by 3.2% over Kamala Harris, 0.86% to 47.65%. 2020, we saw another lean Republican win by Trump, 1.3%. And in 2016, it was a lean Republican win at 3.7%. Both sides try to make claims about North Carolina. I see a lot. Republicans say it's a likely state. Democrats say it will go Democrat. I think the truth is North Carolina will continue to be a lean Republican state for a very long time. As things change, the more they stay the same. And North Carolina, I think, will continue to be lean Republican at the presidential level. At the governor level, different story. Maybe at the Senate level in 2026, maybe a different story. But at the presidential level, I think it'll remain as lean Republican. This puts Vance at 268, Buttigieg at 221. We're getting really, really close now to Vance breaking 270. But hold on, we're not there yet. Nebraska's 2nd district. We did just see this district vote for Kamala Harris right here, this little square one right here. It was 4.7% win for Harris over Trump, just a little bit under 5% likely Democratic win. In 2020, Biden was able to win it by 6.6%. And in 2016, Trump actually was able to win it by 2.2%. So this district has definitely swung towards the Democrats' direction in recent years. I don't think it's possible Vance can swing it back 5 points in 2028 and be able to win this district. I do think Buttigieg would win this district, and I think he'd probably win it once again by a little bit under 5 points. Not by much, but by a little bit under 5. This puts Buttigieg at 222. Vance is at 268. Now the state of New Hampshire. New Hampshire is an interesting state because the Trump campaign didn't really contest New Hampshire all that much, and yet it still only voted for Kamala Harris by 2.8% over Donald Trump. What's funny is I think there are very few states where I think Buttigieg and Vance would do better than both Trump and Harris and then the state of New Hampshire. I think Pete Buttigieg actually appeals to New Hampshire better than Harris does, and I honestly think J.D. Vance appeals better to New Hampshire than Donald Trump does as well. I don't know if that will actually end up happening, but I think that's a statement I would make about the state of New Hampshire. I do think at 2.8% is right around a good margin for Buttigieg versus Vance, but I think Buttigieg would end up winning here probably by about 3.5 to 4 points, which would put New Hampshire as lean Democrat once again, though I do think Buttigieg would boost Harris's margins a little bit in the state of New Hampshire. The Republicans at the presidential level kind of had a little bit of a resurgence in New Hampshire, where we saw it vote in 2024 by 2.8. We saw in 2020 Biden win it by 7.4 after a very close 2016 0.37, but Trump did not break 46.5% in 2016. In 2020, he got 45.36, so Trump actually went down. But then in 2024, Trump shot up to 47.87. Will Vance do better than that in 2028? I'm not sure. It's possible, but I think it's more likely than not Buttigieg will do a little bit better than 50.65% that Kamala Harris got in the state of New Hampshire. So this puts Buttigieg at 226. Vance is at 268. And this is where things start to get very, very interesting and very dicey, because Pete Buttigieg, technically his home state was Indiana, but he has now moved in with his partner into the state of Michigan, where his family is from. So his home state now is technically Michigan, and it's 15 electoral votes. Would him being from Michigan be able to be enough to have him win Michigan against J.D. Vance? And it's interesting because Michigan just voted for Donald Trump by 1.4%. It was very, very close. Trump got 49.73%. Harris got 48.31%. Vance will be running, obviously, as his VP, as the Trump administration, and a lot of Trump's policies and such will be carried on to Vance in this election matchup. But Vance is not Donald Trump in terms of getting voters out to vote. We have not seen a Republican election where Donald Trump was not on the top of the ticket since 2012. 2016, 2020, and 2024 were all Trump. So will Vance be able to get a lot of these voters out to vote for him the same way Trump did? That remains to be seen. Will it be enough, though, for Buttigieg to narrowly overtake Michigan? That remains to be seen as well. I'm actually going to go very, very narrowly. I think it will. And before the 2024 election, I made it very clear I did not see Wisconsin, Michigan, or Pennsylvania not voting the same way like they always have for the last few elections. I was adamant they were going to vote together. In 2028, without Trump being on the top of the ticket, I'm a little bit more skeptical that maybe this might be the first election in a while where the three states do actually vote differently. The state of Wisconsin, we did see its 10 electoral votes go for Donald Trump by 0.86%, 49.6 to 48.74. Again, this is one where Trump won very, very narrowly against Harris. I think it's possible that Buttigieg does a little bit better at turning out votes in the state of Wisconsin. where I think Buttigieg may be actually able to narrowly flip Wisconsin as well, both being under 1%, maybe even under 0.5% in these states. So I think the election comes down to the state of Pennsylvania once again, and this is where it's going to be a test of, can Vance get enough of Trump's rural and suburban voters that voted for him in 2024 out in 2028. Trump won Pennsylvania by 1.7 points, more than the 1.4 in Michigan and 0.86 in Wisconsin. In 2020, we saw Biden win it by 1.2. Michigan went to Biden by 2.8, and then Wisconsin was Biden plus 0.63. 2016, Wisconsin 0.6, 0.22, 0.72. Pennsylvania continues to be the most Republican of the three Rust Belt states, and I think at 1.7% from 2024, equating it to the 2028 map of Buttigieg versus Vance, I think Vance narrowly holds on by less than half a percentage point against Buttigieg, wins the election 287 electoral votes to Buttigieg's 251, just enough, squeaking out a very close election. Really early on, so it's hard to tell how things in 2028 are going to look, obviously, with how the country is doing, how the Trump administration is viewed as a big factor in all of this. But I think right now, we're very early on, in like the middle of March, I think Vance starts out as a narrow favorite over Buttigieg, in large part due to being able to retain some of the Rust Belt voters that Trump was able to get to the Republican Party. I think a lot of them will stay with the Republican Party and vote for Vance like they did for Trump. Some of them may stay home, though, which I think leads to Buttigieg boosting his numbers from the 2024 numbers that Harris got. But I do think Vance would do just enough to hold on and win a very, very close election. I'm interested to hear what you have to think about this. Leave a comment below telling me your thoughts. Thank you so much for watching. Please remember to give the video a like. Remember to click subscribe. I hope to see you in a future video.